That's crazy, bro. Welcome to another episode of That's Crazy Bro. Today, this is your boy John Paul, and I'm here with a special friend of mine, John Sonmez from BulldogMindset.com. John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, glad
Yeah,
to be talking to you.
yeah, thank you
Yeah,
very much. I DM'd you on Instagram telling you how I love your videos and stuff, and I didn't know you was gonna respond back. So when you responded back, I was like, "Whoa, this is insane," because I love your videos. I love how you project yourself. So I wanted to have a one-on-one discussion with you, because you wanted to do this on Zoom, and
uh,
I was like, "Nah, I wouldn't be able to connect well with you through online."
right. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
exactly.
why I'm not like a good what's it say? I'm not a fan of the online classes because
Mm.
you don't learn that well through online, but you would be able to understand stuff when you are in one-on-one situation with like people, so that's why I decided to drive down to San Diego to record this video. So thank you for inviting me once again.
Yeah, no, that's smart. I mean, I think most people wouldn't be willing to, make a trip and to do it in person, but
Yeah,
it's smart because you connect with people better, and and I think that's something that's really important. In fact, especially now with everything going on, right?
yeah,
We're learning how important like one-on-one connection is because
connection
we're
is,
so
yeah,
socially distanced now.
yeah,
It's causing a lot of problems, and
yeah, that's
so.
cool. Before we start from the main discussion, I was just curious though,
Mm.
what made you like reply my messages? Because I know some people that have lots of subscribers like you do and stuff, like they have too much ego and pride to read DMs on Instagram. So
Oh yeah.
like that kind of shows a great type of personality that you have. So I'm kind of curious. I'm trying to tap in like what made you like how you know what I'm trying to say,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so like what was going on in your mind when you just read my message and you were like, oh, that's fine. You were just like fine with it, that, or you didn't try to, like be corny or some shit like that.
Well, yeah. So there's a couple things. I think. I mean, one just in general, like any DMs I get, I look at all of them,
Yeah.
and if I can, like I go for a walk every night. I'm like, okay, if I'm going for a walk for an hour, I can make someone's day if I record a video response to them, right? And it could change their life because a lot of
Yeah.
people get inspired,
Mhm.
or you never know. I mean, sometimes it might be someone that's really important
Yeah,
that has
exactly.
just this little Instagram account, and they're
Yeah.
just they're just reaching out on there. And so I try to just get back to as many people, do a lot of video responses as possible,
Yeah.
and then I think the thing is like I think the way that you approached it, right? Offering to interview me, and I forget exactly how the conversation went, but I went and
Yeah.
I looked and I saw that you're hustling, right? That's
Yeah.
one thing I appreciate is like when someone is putting in the work, right? And
Oh
I
yeah.
looked on your Instagram, I saw your YouTube, and I said, okay, this guy is hustling.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that if I pretty much if I can do it,
Yeah.
I am going to accept an interview request because you never know, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter
That's right.
because someone could be starting out really small,
Mhm.
and they could get bigger than me,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it's like and then they say, hey, oh, yeah, my first interview was John Son. What I
Yeah.
mean? It's like
Yeah.
so you never know, right?
Yeah.
It's
That's
like
true.
you should just take those opportunities because at least that's the way I look at it, right?
Yeah,
So
that's cool.
yeah.
So you started your YouTube channel, your YouTube journey 7 years ago, right? When
I think about 7 years ago. Yeah,
and the first name was Simple Programmer before
correct.
you switched it to Bulldog Mindset, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what did the channel initially start off as? Did you like intended to start off your YouTube channel as this channel where you wanna motivate people to be great, or were you like into kind of programming your mindset? Like, how did you start your YouTube journey?
So I was a software developer for a long time,
Okay.
and I used to teach like technical courses and training for software developers. And then what I started to figure out was as I started my blog, which was called Simple Programmer, I started to get all these opportunities. All these people are contacting me, and all of a sudden it was like I was really good technically before
Okay,
then.
gotcha.
But my career started to take off when I started appearing on podcasts and I started marketing myself, right? Building this blog and stuff. And
Gotcha.
so I realized that what I could really teach software developers was soft skills, right?
Gotcha.
And so I created the YouTube channel to do that, was to say, okay, there's a lot of content out there for technical stuff, and I was producing a lot of technical stuff myself, but there's not a lot of content out there for teaching software developers how to be better people, how to improve themselves, how to speak and communicate. And those were the things that I was, that was really benefiting me. So that's kind of how it started.
Yeah.
And I still have that company, Simple Program. In fact, I have another YouTube channel called Simple Program because I switched the name.
Oh, okay,
Because I didn't
gotcha.
want to lose the audience that I had.
Oh, gotcha.
But what ended up happening was with that, as I started doing more and more personal development type of content, and then I started to really like get away from programming in any respect on the channel, and what I was seeing also at the same time was I was getting a lot of emails, getting a lot of stuff from young guys, right? That were because programming is mostly men is in there, right?
Of course.
And they were struggling with a lot of things around masculinity, right?
Okay.
They're struggling with dating with women, especially. That was a huge issue. They're shy, they're afraid. Like these are struggles I had gone through myself, right? And so that's when I started to think about, okay, I want to create something for men primarily, like to help them understand like the stoic mindset to really to change their lives, because I feel like today in society one of the biggest problems we have is weak men.
Of course,
right?
yeah.
And that kind of that collapses the whole society, because the backbone of society is honestly strong men. That's how all of great civilizations were built, was on the backs of strong men.
Of course.
And so that I felt like was a bigger mission.
Yeah.
Than I still have the programming community, but I wanted to serve kind of what I felt was a bigger cause. So.
Oh wow, that's a great reply. But tapping into what you said, that looking into the society, we have more of like less men, stroke weak men. But what do you think that is? Do you think the society made the men degrade themselves or change? Like, why the transformation from this type of great masculine men to the type of men that we have right now?
Yeah, good question. So I believe it's a cycle, right? There's actually a guy I was following. He actually just died of cancer recently. Stefan Arniel.
Oh,
he wrote a book called "Hard Times Create Strong Men," and really good book. And in that he quoted a poem. I can't remember the author of the poem, but it basically goes something like this. It goes like, "Hard times create strong men create good times times create weak men." And so it's a cycle, right? So what happens is we had strong men, maybe in the 1930s or so, right?
Yeah.
Fighting world wars, right? Basically saving the world from fascism, right?
Yeah.
And sacrificing their lives, millions of lives, right? And so, and going through the Great Depression and these struggles that those men, from that generation became strong because they had to. Because the weak weren't going to survive, because the world depended on them. And then those strong men, they built an economic prosperity, at least in the U.S., right? And a lot across the world.
Yeah.
And that created good times.
Of course.
And when there's good times, you have, it creates a weak men, because you look at today, right? A lot of millennials, a lot of kind of that generation, you have this really big sense of entitlement, like, oh, I went to college, therefore I should get a job.
Yeah.
That's not how the world works. Or,
of course.
you know what I mean? Or, in many areas.
Yeah.
And so that creates, that weakness of expecting that the world's going to give you something. And so I think that, we're kind of hitting that cycle again, where look what we're in now.
Bad times.
It's hard times now.
Hard times, yeah.
Right? And I feel like it's going to get worse. And then eventually the cycle will break
Oh.
so, yeah.
Wow, that's a deep insight. But then going back to the former, into your former, let's say, life, what made you go into software programming? That's what you studied in college, right?
Yeah, so actually I started out just as a kid. I played a lot of video games.
Gotcha.
And I wanted to make video games. And so when the internet was actually first coming out when I was a kid, there was these online games called MUDs, right? It's like, you think about like World of Warcraft, but with no graphics, right?
Okay.
It's just a text-based like dungeon type of, and I wanted to make my own. So I downloaded the source code from a website that they had it, and then I tried to make my own server, and I modified the code. I kind of learned how to code from modifying that code.
Gotcha.
Kind of taught myself, and that was what really got me interested. And then, I went to college for a year. I'd already kind of self-taught myself programming before then, and I didn't like it in college because it was not creating things. It was like it wasn't the experience I was expecting. It was boring. It wasn't. So I almost quit programming completely. I actually dropped out of college and just took a job as a software developer and just started my career from there because I felt like I wasn't getting enough value from it.
So you was able to find a job as a software developer without having a college degree?
Yeah, and this was like like 20 years ago.
Oh, gotcha.
So it was actually more important to have a degree then. But what I did was I got in as a software tester, and then every opportunity that I got when I was a tester,
you made use of it.
I got in there. I said, okay, let me write some code. Let me script this, and pretty soon, some of the guys that were on the development team, they're like, oh shoot, we need to get this guy on our team, and so that's how I got into the.
Yeah, I think that still plays out. I think that still plays out when you don't have a degree, but you still have that talent. Companies don't tend to look at you having a college degree because I think having a college degree is just like a title kind of, because that just helps you grow further, kind of like how you said, people of our age, younger adult millennials, think having a degree means you would have a job. I mean, not necessarily, right?
Right,
because
exactly.
Having a college degree, but if you don't know what you are about to do, if you don't have the passion for it, then there is no way you would excel doing that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, a degree, it's fine to have a degree, but it doesn't mean anything in itself, right? It's what you know. It's like you said, the passion that you bring to what you do, and it's like ultimately, like I hire people now, right? And I hire people based on whether or not I think they can get the job done.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't care what their credentials are. I just want to say, okay, is this a person that, like, the most valuable person you could be, I think, in hiring is someone who you can communicate that whatever it is that you need me to do, I may not know how to do it, but I will figure it out and I will get it done.
Exactly.
That is, if you can communicate that to me, you're hired. Because I know you can make me money. I know you're gonna, like, I'm not gonna have to manage you and watch you, because you're gonna figure out how to get it done yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know some friends, I would be like, yeah, do you know how to do this? They're gonna be like, no, and no, they don't care, But there are some certain people that you will be like, do you know how to do this? They'll be like, no, but I can find out to do that,
Exactly.
Those are like people that want to progress with themselves, They always try to get better. And I think that's how we should be. You should always like try to improve yourself, kind of.
Yeah.
And from your journey already, you retired at age 33 and you are 40, so you retired like 7 years ago. Wow, that's amazing. How were you able to do that from being a software programmer to retiring at the age of 33?
Okay. So I think, first of all, like, just so people aren't confused, like when I use the term retire, I think of it as financial independence. It doesn't mean not working anymore.
Okay, gotcha.
Like, I don't have to work, and that's what it is. It's like not having to work, right?
Okay, gotcha.
And when I first retired, I wanted to just not work at all, just play video games and drink Mai Tais on the beach. And I tried that for 2 months. I was in Hawaii, and I couldn't do it, right? Because I gotta be doing something, right? I gotta be pushing myself forward. Like, you have to be living your purpose in life, especially as a man.
Yeah.
And so what happened, like, my journey was, as a software developer, I did okay. I made fairly good money, but you're never going to, like, retire young, no matter how much money you're making from a job. It's not enough, because it's just, you're gonna have to pay taxes. You're gonna have to deal with inflation, and you're gonna have to save so much money. It's not the road, right? So I'd kind of figured this out when I got a really lucrative job early on. And what I started to look at and started to really ask myself was, like, how did people in America get rich, right? Like, where do rich people get their money? And it came back to, like, 90% of them was real estate, right? And so that's where I started thinking. I was like, okay, I can do this. I can buy some real estate. And so actually I bought my first house when I was like 19. And it was a crappy house. It was, I could barely afford it. I just didn't want to pay rent.
Gotcha.
I think it was like $68,000 was, the house I bought. And and so I came up with this plan of like buying a property every year, like taking all the money I was making from software development job. At one point I was like sleeping on a mattress on the floor. I wouldn't even buy anything in my house, right? No furniture.
Yeah.
And I just took the money and I was investing it into real estate.
Real estate.
And then, and so that helped. Like then I was on the path of like maybe 15, 20 years. I knew I could probably retire. But what really like accelerated things was business, right? Because I started the blog Simple Programmer, and I just did that as a just
Part-time?
yeah, I just thought it would be a fun thing. I wasn't expecting to make money from it.
Gotcha.
But then I realized that, I had this audience and I could build a course and sell it myself.
Gotcha.
And so I started selling a course on there on how to market yourself as a software developer. And then I started doing courses for this company called Pluralsight and teaching developers on there, and I was getting paid royalties. And then I wrote a book and I was getting paid royalties from there. And so I found all these little, income sources, right?
Yeah.
I started the YouTube channel and I was making some money from there, and podcasts. And by making all that, having all those business income sources, I could take that money and I could put it into real estate and even pay off some real estate, so I could accelerate that process. So something that might have taken me 15 years or 20 years in real estate, it ended up taking me, once I started building up those businesses, maybe like 5 years to get to that point where I could pay off enough properties. And then, for me, like retirement, like was enough to have enough passive income to live, right? To live my lifestyle, to pay for everything.
Yeah.
And I reached that was that point at 33 where I was like, okay, I quit my regular job. I told my boss I don't really need to work for you anymore. And I had charted it, and I had been charting it as I was doing this process, and my passive income reached that point where I was like, okay, I think it was probably like about $6,000 a month of rental income that I was getting that was completely passive. And that was where I said, okay, I never have to work again, right? And I knew I'd never have to work again for the rest of my life as long as I had, once I had done that. So that's where the retirement came
Gotcha.
from,
So, like, in your own terms, retirement means basically being financial free, basically, right?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and it's really important today, especially because one thing that I think a lot of guys don't understand is that you do not have freedom of speech unless you have financial freedom. Because if you look at today and you look at the cancel culture and all of these things that are going on, if you are depending on someone else for your income, if you're working a job, you can't just say what you want.
That's a fact.
Right? Yeah. People will call you all kinds of things. The isms, right? The sexist, the racist, all of these things, because you don't really have that freedom of speech.
Of course.
But when you have financial independence, you can say what you want, and that's why I've been able to. It's nice to be able to say what I want. People can't really do much. They can try and hurt me, but that's that's just one of the big benefits of it. And that's why it's becoming more and more important today. Is that like if you truly want to be able to have freedom of speech, you need to have financial independence.
Gotcha. That's a fact. But you said you bought your first house at 19 with. The cost was $68,000, right? Were you able to pay it at once, or you took out a loan? Because I know I'm 21 and I don't have that in my account. So if I'm trying to start up a real estate business, how do you expect young folks? Because most of my audience are young too.
Yeah.
So if they are trying to start something like real estate, how do you expect them to go about it?
So I think one thing that a lot of people think is, oh, well, he must have had a lot of money and when I was 19, I was working a job making $15 an hour. Okay. I didn't really have much savings. Okay. So I got this house, and it was $68,000, and I got a mortgage on the house. Hardly anyone would lend to me. I had to find someone who believed me. It was like, okay, and it wasn't good terms. It was a very high interest rate. It was like I think like around 10% interest rate. But I was like, okay, I know that this is a good plan, and so I basically ended up just barely being able to get the loan. And then I think the monthly payments were something like $700 or $800 a month. So it was a lot of my income because I was only making $15 an hour at the time. And so, but I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make that happen. And I said, okay, well, I mean, there's other ways to do it, right? Like at one point I was going to have, in fact, I had roommates. I was like, oh, well, okay, if I'm paying $700 a month for this place, well, I could get a roommate and they pay $300, and now I'm
Yeah.
paying, you know, $400.
400,
So, so there's ways to do it. You just got to, you know, figure out, you know, how you're going to do it, and, you know, saving up some money. I didn't have much for a down payment, but usually, like buying your first house, there's a lot of programs and FHA and different ways that you can do like a low down payment, or, you know, part of what I had to do was, I had to connect the house I bought. The city water wasn't connected, so the real estate agent was like, "Oh, you know, the seller is going to pay the closing costs for this, but I didn't have a down payment for the property, so he was going to pay like $4,000 to have it connected as part of."
Okay.
And he said, you know, if you dig that ditch, he'll give the money to you, and you could use it as a down payment.
Yeah.
So I was out there all night, like digging. It's a big trench. I mean,
Whoa.
I had to go out there with a shovel for probably like a good 15 hours worth of digging. But you know, I got the money for the down payment. So like, it's like if you're committed to make the thing happen, like just an example, right? You know, I when I messaged you this morning, and you're like, I forgot that it was that you were going to come in person, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was online,
Right.
so I had to schedule on my calendar, and then, you know, I saw the message from you. I'm like, oh yeah, there's no way he's going to come down here now. Like, it's like, right? But you're like, no, fuck, I'm going to make it happen. Like, you're like, I'm getting in the car, I'm going, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you have that mindset, right, you can make things happen. Like, if you have the mindset, if you say, oh no, it's too hard, or yeah, I don't have the money for this, or you know, it's not going to work, right?
Yeah.
Then you're right. It's not. But if you're like, no, I'm going to make it work, right?
Gotcha.
Like, that's the biggest thing. Is like,
Make it
don't
work.
try, make it work. If you have that commitment that you're going to make it work, you'll figure out a way.
Gotcha. Wow.
In fact, Viktor Frankl, right, in his book Man's Search for Meaning, really good book.
Yeah.
He was like a Holocaust survivor. He went to concentration camp. Wrote a really good book that really is about abolishing the victim mindset. He said, when the why is powerful enough, you'll figure out the how. And that's, you know, it's something to remember. It's like, if your why is strong enough,
Yeah.
you can make it happen. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's I'm learning too, and I hope you guys are learning. What's the name of your book? You said you wrote a book.
Yeah, so I've got a couple. So the first one I wrote was, and these are mostly for software developers. It's called, Soft Skills Software Developers Life Manual.
Okay, gotcha.
In fact, this one is actually not published by the publisher anymore because I was canceled.
Okay.
Because I got attacked online, and so I'm republishing the book myself.
Gotcha.
But actually, the more successful book that I self-published is this one, The Complete Software Developer Career Guide. And so this is like this is right now the #1 best-selling software development book on Amazon. So
Wow.
yeah, it's a hefty book. It's a little, you know, it's spaced out, so it's not. But
Not too bad,
I wanted to make it real easy for people to pick up and read. So.
Oh,
That's
cool. So back to the real estate. What condition was the house? Was it perfect? Was there stuff that was wrong with the house before you got it, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of an older house. I think it
Okay.
was built in the 1900s.
Gotcha.
So it was not in great. It wasn't like completely destroyed. I didn't have to do a lot inside there, but there was a reason why I was able to get that
For a good price.
Yeah, and you know, I searched for a while. The real estate agent said, when I was searching for a house, he's like, "Oh, there's nothing under $80,000. You don't want to see the stuff under that." And I said, "No, let me see it." So that was, you know, it was the only thing I could afford. Right, that was it. So that's why I did it.
So, did you find the house by yourself, or you had to set up a meeting with a real estate agent to help you find the house?
Yeah, I set up a meeting with a real estate agent, and then he showed me.
Okay, he was the one that showed you the properties available,
Exactly.
right?
Yep.
So how do you get in contact with one, like a real estate agent that would be down to like help you out? Because most of them are not willing to assist like younger adults like us. They only want like accomplished people, you know, because they don't believe we could do stuff. I mean, that's what I think, but yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things you can do. Like, one is you can look for a real estate agent that's just starting out as well.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they're going to be eager, right? They're going to want to take on clients, and, you know, if you go for someone that's making a lot of money already and that has $1 million listings and stuff, they're probably not going to want to, you know. The second thing that you could do also, and I do this all the time when I'm talking with the real estate agents, and anyone that I'm going to do like long-term business with, is like indicate that you're going to do some long-term business. Right?
Okay,
So
gotcha.
I tell a lot of my coaching clients today that when they're trying to get a real estate agent to work with them, because, you know, my strategy is to make very lowball offers, right? Like, so you're going to give a really low price. Real estate agents don't like to do that because it makes them look bad. And so they don't want to take on a lot of my coaching clients because of that. And so what I tell them is I say, hey, look, okay, when you talk to a real estate agent, let them know up front what you're going to do. Let them know that you know why you're doing it. But also tell them, look, I'm looking for someone I can work with. I might buy 5 properties in the next 5 years.
5 years.
Right?
Yeah.
So they think, beyond the one transaction. Because for the one transaction, it might be annoying working with someone who doesn't have experience, who doesn't have a lot of money, who's going to buy. But if they realize that, okay, I'm a hustler, this guy's a hustler, he's going to make sure that he's going to be successful and he's going to keep on buying, right? Then they see the long-term relationship as valuable. So that's kind of how you have to work it.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
That's cool. And so I don't know, but you said something about being canceled. What happened online,
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. I probably shouldn't have gotten involved in it, but there was, in the tech community, it's very much a political correctness type of culture, right? And so I had a friend of mine message me, and he's like, there was this woman that was on my podcast a couple of times, because I used to have a podcast called Get Up and Code that was like programming and fitness.
Okay, gotcha.
And she was on there. I kind of knew her, and she was a good person, right? And he said, this I won't say her name just in case she's probably done with all this. So, but he's like, she's being attacked by all these kind of social justice warriors online, and they're doxing her, and they're like trying to get her fired from her job. And normally I ignore that. Like, I don't even go down to Twitter, right? Like I don't even use the account. But I was like, all right, you know what? I'll go check it out and see. And I saw it, and I was like, I was like, this is not right. Like, this girl, like, she's gonna lose her job potentially. She, and she just made some kind of comment, like, she was talking about like the inclusivity, and she was saying, like, it seems like the people that are pushing diversity in tech seem to be really angry, and I don't know if I were coming into like technology or programming if I would feel welcome in a place like this, right? It was something mundane like that. It wasn't like a big major thing.
Yeah.
And they were just attacking her over it, right? And so I got in there and I was like, all right, I'll just like kind of divert. I'll get them angry at me instead. And so I started making all these nasty comments. It wasn't like, some of the stuff I said wasn't good.
Okay.
Anyway, I was attacking the people that were attacking her, calling them names and stuff. And like, people found things that I said that they tried to interpret as sexist or racist, right?
Okay.
And then they screenshotted those things, and they took them out of context, and then all of a sudden I'm being branded as this racist guy, right? Which is like such a ridiculous accusation, But anyway, that's what happens, and before I knew it, like, there was like thousands of people retweeting the thing, and then people were calling to cancel me, and then they were messaging my book publisher, and then Pluralsight, who was publishing my courses, and within like a day or so, they pulled my book, they pulled all my courses from Pluralsight. They tried to come after whatever they could, but again, I wasn't depending on all those things, right? I had the other.
Of course,
so
okay.
So it was a big mess.
Like, when I type something, the real intention might be clear with me,
right?
But then that's not how it's gonna appear when like other people read it. I believe, like, whenever I talk to someone, I'm more specific, and I try to make myself understandable than when you text. So that's why I believe recently. Last year I didn't know anything about cancel culture, but since COVID started, the protests and everything, I've been hearing cancel culture. And it's kind of funny because last week I was listening to a podcast on cancel culture. Like, someone made a deep study on why do people cancel and this. And basically it was just what you said, because people just randomly hate people on the other side of the argument or whatever, But then I believe that God created the world, giving us options. You either do A or do B. Like, you either become a sinner or become a righteous. Like, we've always had options in life, So either you do this and that's fine with you, then that's fine with me, then we should always be able to like respect other person's view.
Right.
Even, I mean, that's why it's good to always talk out things with people, right? Because even if they don't understand, when you guys talk about it, then that person might be able to, I mean, even if not agree with you, kind of have a good understanding of your perspective, which might help them change their views. So
Exactly. Yep.
I believe hopefully when COVID stops and when people stop being online and getting busy, I think cancel culture might decrease. But since nobody has anything doing, like everyone is at home, all they go is going to either find someone to dehumanize and something like that. So yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some good books too. I think that that most people should read. One of the most important ones is I think Fahrenheit 451. It's an older book, but it in that book what happens, like the premise of the book is that the firefighters no longer fight fires when someone has a fire alarm. It's to summon the firefighters to burn books, because books are basically outlawed, right? Any books of substance, and the reason why, like, it's kind of interesting. Like in the story, one of the main characters, he asks the chief firefighter, he's like, well, why did the people allow the government to ban all these books and to burn these books? And the chief firefighter says, it wasn't the government, it was the people. The people, one group of people said, this book offends me. And then another group of people said, this book offends me.
Yeah.
And he said the easiest thing to do was just to get rid of all of the books, because the books, every book offended someone.
Yeah.
And so that solved the problem. And that's what people wanted. And that's the thing, is it's like, there's evil in the world for sure. But that evil needs a voice. And that seems like a really weird thing to say, but it does, because one, we don't know necessarily what it is, and we need to be able to identify it. And because if what I think is bad versus what you think is bad versus, like, everyone's going to have a different idea, and if we ban everything that we don't like, we cancel it, there's not going to be anything left.
That's true.
Right? And that's it's such an important thing. It's like, there's so many people that say things that I totally disagree with, but I want them to say it. And I want to hear it, and I want to be exposed to it, because it makes me stronger.
Yeah.
Right? And and I recognize that if they can't say, then I can't speak as well. And so it's so important that, like, we all, regardless of what we believe, right? This is so important, is that we defend strongly the right for people to say what they think, and not just without governmental consequence, but without social consequence.
Gotcha.
Right? There's a difference between a thought and an action, and I think it's really important. We can pontificate on all kinds of thoughts and stuff. If someone takes a criminal action, okay, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
But thoughts and speech are not violence. They're not.
Gotcha.
They're not crimes.
Yeah.
And that's it's a big problem, because we are closing off our ideas, and then it's a very scary place to be.
Gotcha.
Because everyone who is censored, right, is like, canceled, or cancel someone. You could be on the other side of that. Right, because when are they going to come for you? Right, that's the question. Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, but Fahrenheit 451, recommend that everyone read that book. So
that reminds me of the same podcast I listened to last week. So there was this guy on Twitter that assisted someone to cancel someone, and then the guy all of a sudden said something, and then the same people that cancelled the person that he cancelled.
Oh yeah.
Cancelled. So it was just funny. Like, you could never be free from cancel culture. Like,
yeah. I mean, it happened to J.K. Rowling, right?
Yeah.
Author of Harry Potter, right?
Yeah.
She said something, I think, that offended. She said, like, about a man is a man or a woman is a woman, right, or something like that, and offended someone who is transgender, and they canceled her. And she was the one who was, like, promoting the cancel culture for, and then she got to see what it was like, and it's like, we just have to have a little bit of
understanding.
And just, like, this idea that, like, we used to, I don't know, when I was a kid, we used to say, words can't hurt me, but sticks and stones may break my bones. And it was like, we need a little bit more toughness, a little thicker skin to say, okay, you can say whatever you want. I'm not going to be, I'm not going to, like, hide from a speech that I find offensive. It's fine. It's a different thing when you're, like, physically assaulting someone, but we have to have that open discord, because it's what the foundation of our society rests on. So,
but I understand. I agree with what you're saying, but some words are rather held in than spoken. Because you don't know who might be listening. I still remember some tough words some of my friends told me like 10 years ago, and it still like rings in my head.
Yeah.
So that's why I believe that's the perspective of cancel culture. Like, you don't want to say something that will hurt like a massive, or that might cause someone to go into a depression and something like that. So I mean, either way, you should still have, I believe everyone should still have their own freedom of speech,
Right.
but then you should be careful of hurting someone on the other ends that might go ahead to commit suicide or some shit based on what you told to that person. So that's why I always like think twice before you speak. Like, I would rather not speak than say something that will hurt my friend. That's how I think life should be. But
Yeah,
I
agree.
think I think that's why cancel culture has been developed to protect the weak ones. Because a society has the strong ones and the weak ones. So I think the cancel culture is just there to protect both the strong and the weak, if that makes sense.
But if you think about it, see what you said, I don't have any problem with, in the sense that you're regulating your own speech, right? Because you have standards for yourself. You say, hey, I'm not going to say things that are going to hurt, insult people, because I know what it feels like, and I know that the stinging criticism will ring in your ears for many years, right? So you're putting that standard upon yourself, but you're not putting it upon other people. It's different when you're putting on other people, right? It's fine. I agree. We should have high standards for ourselves. We should say we don't want to say things that are going to hurt people, needlessly. But to put that standard on someone else, that's where I feel like we're overstepping the bound. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
Like, I agree with you in that sense, but when you put it on someone else, that's beyond what you're, we can only control ourselves.
Of course.
Right? And you think about it, like, let's say, you have someone who is let's say that they're blatantly racist, or they have that they're really, I think it's being misused a lot, but let's say you had someone who actually is. So is it better for you for everyone to say, to suppress that person and not let them say anything, and to tell them how bad and wrong they are, and then secretly inside they're still thinking the same thoughts, because you can't change someone's mind? Or is it better to let them express what they're saying so that people can refute it, right? Because when someone is like that, the question starts, the first question I would ask someone like that is what is it that happened to you that makes you think this way? Because there's probably some hurt that they experienced, right?
Of course.
Maybe they lived in a neighborhood that was a bad neighborhood, and there was a certain group of people in that neighborhood, and they got beat up every day, and so they're like, oh, this group of people is bad, right? And so if you if you just say, oh, you're bad, to them, right? They've experienced this real thing. Then you might be right. I mean, they shouldn't be saying that. They shouldn't be thinking that. But they don't really have control over it, because it's what they developed in their mind, right? And they're not going to feel ashamed of it. Like, you're not going to change their mind. But instead, if you say, okay, go ahead, say whatever you want. Why do you think this group of people is bad? Like what happened to you? Like, where did it come from? And you let them say, oh, yeah, I'm angry because when I was a kid, this happened to me. And then it's like, okay, I understand. Like, now you get some. You might not totally convince them, but if you're gonna reach someone, that's how you're gonna reach them. You're gonna reach them through showing that you care about them. You never reach someone by showing them you hate them. That you hate them back, because they hate, so you hate them back. You reach someone who is expressing hate by
through love.
Exactly.
But then that's with face-to-face interaction. You would be able to do that, but online,
it's harder.
It's harder. So basically.
But compassion is the key, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and maybe that's the metric, right? It's like, when you're dealing with a person, think, am I dealing with them with compassion?
Gotcha.
Right? And that, I think that limits the problem, right? Because you're not gonna like call for someone to be canceled. You're not gonna like attack someone, if you're dealing with them in compassion. Right? If you're dealing with them in compassion, you might not tolerate their behavior. You might say, hey, look, if you're going to say those things, I don't want to be around you. I don't want to, like, no offense, but I just don't want to. I don't want to hear that. I don't want that in my head. I think that's dealing with compassion.
Gotcha.
But to say you're a bad person, or we're going to cancel you, it's not compassion.
Gotcha. So your YouTube channel is named Bulldog Mindset, right?
Right.
So, and you always talk about victims mindset. So, how do you differentiate between the victims mindset and the bulldog mindset?
Good, yeah. So it kind of relates to what we were just talking about,
Yeah.
right? So to me, the victim mindset is really, it's making yourself a victim in any way, even if it's a justifiable victim. So here's kind of the best example that I think in recent history I can think of here. So there was Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think it was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
He was in South Africa for this sporting event there, and he's got his back turned. This guy runs up and jump kicks him in the back. I don't know if you've seen that.
No.
He jump kicks him right in the back, just hard, right? And Arnold's like 70 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
Now he's Arnold, but he's getting older, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it hit him hard. Like, I mean, the guy just, both feet, right in the back, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna put a clip of this. In
Oh, yeah.
so some people get it, yeah.
And so, so I watched that, and then I watched the next day, like, or a couple days later, there was a news channel that was interviewing Arnold, like, maybe, I think, like, a telecast, like, from his house or something. And they're like, oh, what, they played the clip.
Mm-hmm.
You could see, I mean, he got hit hard, right?
Yeah.
And she asked Arnold, she's like, what were you thinking when that guy kicked you in the back? How did it feel? Are you going to press charges? Were you upset, right? She asked him all these questions, and Arnold's like, I didn't even notice that. Just someone kicked me? I don't know. I didn't notice. I didn't feel it, right? And he felt, but see, he won't let himself be a victim.
Yeah.
No matter, even if he could have rightly said, oh yeah, this guy is a jerk. I can't believe he did this to me. I'm going to sue him or whatever, or I'm going to press charges against him. But he won't even acknowledge that he got kicked in the back. Because he won't allow himself to be a victim. And that's, I think so many people think that they don't have the victim mindset because they aren't claiming to be a victim of false victimizations.
Gotcha.
The key is to never allow yourself to be a victim, because being a victim is always a choice. Again, I'll go back to the book I was talking about, Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Really, really good book. Highly, highly recommend everyone read that book. If you feel like you've been victimized, read that book, because this guy was a Jew who went to concentration camp. His family was killed. He was tortured. He was sexually abused in there for many, many days. And throughout the whole thing, he said that they couldn't take away from him his dignity, that they couldn't make him a victim because he wouldn't allow it, because it was his choice, right? And so anyone who makes a claim that, bad things happen to people. I've had bad things happen to me. Everyone's had bad things. Some people have had horrible things happen to him. He did, for sure.
Yeah.
But being a victim is always a choice. It's what we choose, right? We can't choose what happens to us, but we can choose how we respond to it. That's one of the key messages of Viktor Frankl's book and his legacy. And it's so important because when we start thinking about the world in terms of how unfair things are, or the world is not fair, right? But we start thinking about how people have done things to us, we don't have solutions, and we don't rely on ourselves, and we don't rely on taking responsibility for our lives, right? And so the difference, like the victim mindset, is allowing yourself in any way to be seen as a victim. The bulldog mindset is to say, no, my entire life, whatever happens to me, it's my responsibility. It's my life. No one cares besides me anyway, right? Like, so what if you're victimized? Does anyone care? Not really. They're going to, give you pity, false sympathy. They're not actually really going to do anything for you. Anyone who's ever been traumatized knows this. No one really, really cares. Like, for the most part, I mean, maybe there's a few people, but in general, the world will give you pity. But they're not going to actually lower the bar and make it easier for you.
Yeah.
Instead, the only person who's going to change your life is you. So the bulldog mindset is all about saying, hey, you know what? Whatever the fuck happens, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm responsible, and I'm going to do what I can. And maybe I got a shitty hand. Yeah. Because a lot of times in life, things are unfair, and we get a bad hand. And we have to play that hand as best as we can. And that's what the bulldog mindset is about. It's about saying, look, it doesn't matter. No excuses. Maybe my life is harder in this area than other people, but I am going to do the best that I can, because that's what I can control. Because I can't control the world. I can't control other people. I can't control the genetics that I have. I can't control all those things, but I can control what I do.
Exactly, yeah. That's what I normally saw my podcast about, overthinking, because I have friends always overthinking about situations. I'm like, I mean, why would you overthink on a situation that you can't control, rather than overthinking, you should rather take action of what next you do. You know, you should rather take control of your life rather than staying in your bed or wherever, like overthinking what should I do, you know.
Right.
Just take action, and that's exactly like what you said about bulldog mindset, because you don't want to keep being a victim by overthinking. You want to be a bulldog by taking the action and then taking control of your life. So,
Exactly.
yeah, that's a good mindset to have. I feel like if people get used to having that type of mentality and mindset, then I think we have suddenly changed the cycle that you said initially, that hard men make good times, right? Something
Right.
like, yeah.
Exactly.
So when we just overcome that victim mindset and then having a bulldog mindset, then I think we would have a good life, you know. I think, yeah, that's a good stuff. Like, what made you come up with that name though? What made you come up with the name of that?
Yeah, so the name came from when I had the Simple Programmer channel, and I was doing videos. A lot of multiple people commented. They said, "How do I get that bulldog mindset that you have?" Right?
Okay.
And so multiple people said that. So I said, "Okay, there's something there. I should make the
Gotcha.
bulldog mindset." So
That's cool.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but then going back to programming, since I see you still active with programming, I thought you stopped at a point, but that's good. You've been always going through with your passion. Um, Most of my friends that's into computer engineering, software, because I'm electrical engineer, so I have many computer engineering friends, computer scientists, software programmers. They seem to have this general belief, or like what I view them as, they are more introverted. They like staying to themselves. So were you at a point introverted maybe?
Yeah, so I actually have kind of a controversial opinion on this,
Okay.
which is that I don't believe in labels
Okay.
in general,
Okay, gotcha.
right? But especially in introversion and extroversion labels, because what happens is you get that label applied to you, and then you act that way because the strongest thing that determines our actions in life is our identities, how we view ourselves. There's a really good book by Dr. Maxwell Maltz called Psycho-Cybernetics, another book I highly recommend.
Okay.
And it talks about self-image. And our self-image, basically our identity, is the thing that defines who we are. Like, we cannot violate that. So
Yeah.
what we internalize about ourselves. So that's where the kind of introversion and extroversion, I think comes into play. It's like, what I look at it is that a lot of introversion is really just social anxiety. It's just afraid. It's afraid of rejection. It's a fear of life. It's a fear of people, right? And I can speak from personal experience, because when I was growing up, I was very shy. I was very introverted. I didn't want to go and meet people, and it made me nervous because I was constantly thinking about how are people perceiving me, and I was feeling like people are judging me or they might not like me. And these are normal human fears, and like this is part of the human experience. Instead, I think what a lot of people try to do is say, "Oh, no, that's just how you are." I hate those words. That's just how you are. I hate those words, because those words put someone in a box. That's not, you choose how you are. You choose what you want to become.
Okay.
And there was a point in my life where I said, "You know what? It's uncomfortable, but I want to be the guy that goes and talks to people.
Yeah.
I want to be the guy that's not afraid to go and talk to that girl. I want to be the guy that goes out and does it." And I had to go through a lot of discomfort to become that person. But I started playing that role, like an actor, right? And then pretty soon I was that role. And so I think that we alternate between, because the whole idea, the concept of introversion is that you gain your energy from being alone, versus an extrovert gains their energy from
talking to
but
people, yeah.
we gain our energy from both those places. All of us do, right? Sometimes when you're alone, it's good and you recharge, and sometimes, but if you stay alone too long, just like we're experiencing now, you start to lose your energy, right? You're like, I need to go and contact, because we're meant to be social animals, and so you have to go out and meet people and get that energy, right?
Gotcha.
And the problem is, like, when you're really shy and you haven't like overcome those fears of social anxiety and being afraid of what people think of you, then when you go out and you're around people, it takes energy from you because you're under anxiety, you're under stress, so you can enjoy that. But you take that same person who's introverted and you put them in a group of their geeky friends, you know what I mean? And they will be totally extroverted. They'll be yelling and screaming and having a good time and fooling around with their friends because they don't have the anxiety at that point. And they'll be getting energy from that. Because we all have friends. There's very few people that are like completely isolated, hermit, introverted, right? It's just that we label people. So I think we do a real bad disservice when we label people in any way. And that's why, again, like coming back to kind of what we're talking about with cancel culture and all these things, so many of those things, if you look at the source of these things, they're labeling people in some way. They're saying, okay, because your skin is like this, then I'm going to call you this group of person. Or they're saying, because you believe this political thing, then you must be this. And people are way more complex than that. But if you give them a label, they will fit the label, right? Why is it that all like Democrats think the same things and all Republicans think the same? Is there really no diversity between, you know what I mean? Like it's because you give someone a label and then they decide, okay, I need to fit that label.
Oh, gotcha.
Right? So that's why, you know, it's important that that's why I think labels are so bad. And we need to just, you know, not see people as labels. See everyone as individual.
Gotcha.
And then that allows us to think individually. Otherwise, even if we see ourselves, so we put ourselves into a box, we give ourselves a label, we're going to start to act like that.
Gotcha. So how did you get yourself to avoid that discomfort of being labeled and then going out to trying to talk to people? Was that when you were still in college or when you dropped out? Like, how did you become comfortable getting out of your own shell, getting out of that label to associate yourself, to remove that label from yourself?
I think it came in different phases, right? There was definitely a point like when I was in high school where I started to get this idea where I started to think to myself, you know, why not me? And I started acting as if I was already who I wanted to become. I kind of had that concept, but I was still doing things in such a way as to seek validation from other people, right? It wasn't really like, I wasn't really free in that sense, but I was able to force myself to become a little more extroverted, right? To be out there a little bit more and more social, because I knew it was the path I wanted to go.
Gotcha.
And then a little bit later in life, as I studied a lot of personal development and started to really look at my weaknesses and say, okay, why am I doing the things I'm doing? Am I trying to seek validation? Like, do I really not care what other people think, or am I doing things because I care what they think, right? Getting validation from them. And then I started to realize that the only thing that mattered was what I thought, like my validation. And, at the end of the day, when you go to bed at night, like, do you feel like you did a good job? It doesn't matter if everyone else gives you the applause. It doesn't matter.
Of course.
It matters like whether or not you earned it or not. If you didn't earn it, you're not going to feel good about it, no matter what. You don't want to. As I tell people, I'm like, hey, pick. Do you want one of these medals? Take a marathon, medal. I'll just give it to you, right? And then we can erase the records and we can put your name, and then you can say, how would you feel about that, right? Most people wouldn't want to get it. It'd be meaningless.
Yeah, it would. It would.
And so that's what I think that was one of the realizations that I came to. And then when you sort of value your own judgment and your own opinion more than other people's, then you're a lot more free to be who you want to be, and you don't worry. And it's hard for people to put you in a box. And like people all the time try to put me into a label in a box, but I get along with everyone. I try to I don't have like a set thing. People are like, oh well, he must believe this. He's because he's like this. He said this one thing, so he must believe this other thing, because they're trying to combine these things to put you in a box. But they get upset when it's like I say something like against like someone like Jordan Peterson, even though I say a lot of things that he says, and they're like, oh, how could because it baffles people. They're like, oh no, he has to be in this box. And so, but when you don't care, when you're not seeking, the reason why we fit ourselves into the boxes is because we're seeking approval from other people.
Gotcha.
Right? Because you take whatever political group, or we have all these kind of little groups now, right? And you say something different than what is the group thing for that group, you're going to be ostracized. The group is not going to like you. You're not going to be popular anymore in that group. And that's what keeps us in these boxes. Instead, we need to forget about this and say, hey, it doesn't, I'm not going to be defined by, I won't allow myself to put a label, and I won't put a label on other people.
Gotcha. So. That's funny. That's interesting that you are almost saying stuff that I kind of agree with, because I actually made a video on pleasing people. People always try to please someone in their life regardless of how they feel. I made a poll on my Snapchat asking why do people please people, and people are like, people don't actually please people. Some people say that people please people just to feel good or something like that. But then some people went ahead to say that at a point people try to please themselves, and pleasing themselves is actually like better than pleasing someone, because at the end the person that counts is you, like how you feel internal, you know.
Yep.
So
exactly.
yeah, but then in general I feel like you should write a book, because you have lots of stuff together, like apart from software books, you
Yeah,
need to,
I need to write
you
another.
need to write like a life lessons kind of book, you know, because
Yeah.
life is all about learning from people's experience, and like all the books you've mentioned so far, it seems you read a lot. I don't read that type of books. Like, I like listening to podcasts, listening to people speak, because that's how I learn. I find it difficult to just sit down and read. I mean, I know I should start doing that, you know, but
Well, I do audio too, right?
yeah,
So
okay,
I
audio
listen to
books.
the audiobooks when
Yeah.
I'm running. Like I got to go for a 12-mile run
Yeah.
today. I'll be listening to audiobook the whole time. And that's, I end up getting through like 2 to 3 books a week usually, because I'm listening to them at like 3x speed
Okay.
on the audio books. And yeah, it's good because then, you get a lot of viewpoints, like, and I read stuff from all different kinds of, perspectives, so that I can, sort of like,
yeah, see how it fits in.
yeah.
Yeah. That reminds me, you ran 50 miles. Like, that's insane. 50 miles in a day or what?
Yeah, it took me about 8.5 hours for 50 miles. And I'm actually training for a 100-miler in about a month. I'll be running 100 miles. So
that's insane. I've never run beyond 7 miles in a day.
yeah.
What made you run 50 miles in a day though?
Well, at the beginning of this year, I was kind of like deciding what kind of goals I wanted to set.
Okay,
and I really don't like running that much, to be honest with you. But, I think it's important to do things that you hate, right? Because that's what builds character, like doing things that you hate. And, and sometimes you can use it as a compass, right? The things that you fear and the things that you hate, that's the direction you should go in life. People go the opposite direction. They run away from the things they fear. They run away from the things that they hate. But when you drive to those things, that's when you experience the most growth in life. And so, that was one of those things. I'm not really built like a marathon runner. I'm like 230 pounds. So I said, okay, the next thing is to run a 100-mile race. So part of running a 100-mile race was to do a 50-mile race first. And so was the plan. And really it was for the mental toughness aspect of it. It's like, because, again, when I set my goals in life now, I don't set my goals based on what I can get. I set my goals based on who I can become.
Okay.
And so for me, I want to become the person who's capable of running 100 miles. That's valuable to me. Running 100 miles, getting an award, a medal, that doesn't matter. What matters is who you become in the process. Because in that process of getting to the place where you can run 100 miles and doing that race, there's going to be a lot of growth, right? There's going to be a lot of demons I'll have to fight, that I've had to fight. And that's what's valuable to me.
So the 50 miles wasn't for a competition. You just ran 50 miles on your own. You got no medal for doing it?
Well, I signed up for a race.
Okay.
That was supposed to be in Montana, but it got canceled because of COVID. So I decided to just run it here.
Period that you wanted to quit the run, or you never thought about quitting? Like, what was going on in your mind running 50 miles?
Yeah, I mean, every moment after 30 miles, I wanted to quit. Right? At 20 miles, I thought I still have 30 miles to go. And 20 miles is a long time to run.
Yep, it is.
So, because that's like 3 hours already.
Yeah.
Right? So, but yeah, every step after 30 miles felt like I couldn't go another step. But I knew I could just go one more step. You can always go one more step.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what it takes. Is like you just got to decide. Like, because physically you can do it. It's after mile 30, it was really a mental battle. It's like choosing, and I had a pit stop to get some water at the house because I did 3 laps. On the second lap, I was like 30 miles in, 30 something miles in, and there's a real temptation to just sit down on the couch and say, okay, 30 miles is enough or whatever, and not go back out there. But just convince myself, like, just go and start running and see how far you can get. And and then once you get to like 40 miles, right? Like I knew if I got to 40,
Yeah,
I'm not going to run 40 and not make it 10 more.
10 more,
Like
yeah.
if I have to crawl 10 more miles, I'm going to crawl 10 more
Yeah.
miles, right?
Uh-huh.
And so that was the key. Is it's like you got to set up those things in your mind, is to say, okay, getting from 30 to 40, that was hard, right?
Yeah.
But once you get to 40, and it was still hard, but I knew I wasn't going to quit after 40. There's no way. I'm not going to run like 42 miles or 43 miles, or I'm going to go 50 if I did 40. So
that's interesting. The most I've ever run is 7 miles, and that 7 miles was a struggle. Like I wanted to quit when I was at the 5th mile. I was like shit, but then I normally run a way that I'm gonna run 4.5 or 4.5 away from my house, and then run the rest coming back. So I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna sleep outside. I only have like 3.3 something miles left to just get back to home, So I'm like, why not like finish it up, So I think running builds mental toughness in a way there is no other way you could build it, because when you run, you get to know more about yourself. You get to know more about what you could achieve,
Exactly.
Yeah, so 50 miles, I'm gonna try to at least do 10 miles, but hey, 50 miles, that's insane. That's an incredible goal to reach. So how long did it take for you to prepare for that?
I think about 6 months. I just finished running a marathon. I've run a couple, like 5 marathons.
Yeah, I could see. How many marathons have you run in your life?
I've done 5 full marathons, and then something like 10 half marathons.
Gotcha. That's interesting.
But when you train for a 50-miler, you run marathons as part of the training.
Yeah, okay.
So I've done a lot of training marathon runs or 30-mile runs. So yeah.
Gotcha. So when you was done running, how did it feel? Did it build your confidence? How did your body feel like all of a sudden after you was done? Like when you crossed the 50-mile line that you just got done, how did it feel?
I mean, it felt good. Like it's weird because it doesn't immediately hit you. I was just relieved to be done with it. But and what I was saying before is like now, like if I'm on a run or something, or if I'm doing something hard, I think to myself, I'm like, you're the guy that ran 50 miles.
Yeah.
Like you ran 50 miles. Right?
Yeah.
So I have that now, right? It's like that fuel. It's like, what David Goggins calls in his book. He has a really good book called Can't Hurt Me, right? In his book, he talks about the cookie jar, right? And it's like you put all these things you've done, accomplishments, in the cookie jar in your mind, right? And when you're struggling, you pull something out of the cookie jar. And for me, it's like I can pull out, okay, you ran 50 miles. That's tough. Like not very many people have run 50 miles, right? So it reminds you of who you are. But that's, I didn't feel as much when I finished it, but now I use that. That's my fuel for doing other things. So.
Gotcha. That's cool. You guys listening, you guys have to push yourself, trying to get better every day. That's the goal, but yeah, I feel like we've had a good ass talk. I didn't expect it to last this long. So yeah, you guys should go subscribe, check out his channel, Bulldog Mindset.
Yeah,
right.
That's it. Yeah.
And if you guys enjoyed what you guys just listened to, don't forget to hit the like button, comment and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.
Take care.
Take care. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's crazy, bro.